Welcome back to Dynasties and Tales. Today, we're diving into one of the most controversial and fascinating figures in ancient Egyptian history, Akhenaten, the pharaoh who dared to change the very core of Egyptian religion. His reign was so disruptive that future pharaohs tried to erase him from history altogether. But who was Akhenaten? Why was his reign so controversial? And how did his radical religious reforms reshape Egypt? But before we start, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. To understand Akhenaten's rise to power, we must first look at his origins. Born as Amenhotep IV, Akhenaten was the son of Amenhotep III, one of the most successful pharaohs of Egypt's 18th dynasty. Amenhotep III's reign, around 1391 to 1353 BCE, was a golden age for Egypt, marked by prosperity, architectural marvels, and a flourishing of art and culture. Amenhotep III left his son a wealthy and stable empire, but Akhenaten's reign would become defined by something far different than his father's. When Akhenaten ascended the throne around 1353 BCE, no one could have predicted the dramatic changes that were about to unfold. Initially, Akhenaten followed traditional religious practices, worshipping the array of Egyptian gods, including the supreme deity Amun, as his predecessors had done. But something changed early in his reign. Akhenaten's devotion began to shift away from the traditional pantheon of gods and towards a single god, the Aten, symbolized by the sun disk. Akhenaten was not alone in this transformation. By his side was his famous Queen Nefertiti. Together, they would go on to redefine Egypt's religion, culture, and political landscape. Nefertiti, whose name means "the beautiful one has come," was no ordinary queen. Her prominence in court is well documented, and she played an active role in her husband's reign. She's often depicted alongside Akhenaten in art, participating in religious ceremonies, an unusual level of influence for a queen in Egyptian history. Their partnership was not just a marriage of love, but one of shared vision. Nefertiti supported Akhenaten in his most radical move, the shift from polytheism to the monotheistic worship of Aten. In the 5th year of his reign, Amenhotep IV changed his name to Akhenaten, which means servant of the Aten. With this name change, he began his radical religious revolution. This was a radical move in a civilization that had long practiced polytheism, worshipping many gods across different regions of Egypt. Akhenaten went even further. He declared Aten to be the supreme and only god, beginning one of history's first known monotheistic revolutions. And it wasn't just a theological change, it was a profound political and social upheaval. This was more than a religious shift. It was a direct attack on the established political order. For centuries, the priesthood of Amun had wielded immense power in Egypt, both religiously and politically. Temples to Amun were centers of wealth, influence, and authority, especially in the capital city of Thebes. By declaring Aten the only god, Akhenaten stripped Amun and his priesthood of their divine importance. The priests of Amun had long held significant influence over Egypt's pharaohs, but Akhenaten, by elevating Aten, undermined their authority and redirected resources and power away from them. To further solidify this religious revolution, Akhenaten took an extraordinary step. He moved the capital of Egypt. Abandoning Thebes, the traditional seat of Amun's power, he established a brand new city dedicated entirely to the worship of Aten. This city, called Akhenaten, is known today as Amarna. Unlike traditional Egyptian cities, Amarna was constructed quickly and with a singular purpose: to glorify the Aten. The city's layout reflected Akhenaten's religious beliefs. At its center stood the great temple of Aten, an open-air temple with no roof, designed so that the rays of the sun could shine directly onto the altars. The emphasis on sunlight was a key feature, as Aten was believed to embody the life-giving power of the sun. Akhenaten's palace was located nearby, but the city also housed administrative buildings, homes for nobles and workers, and smaller temples, all designed to reflect the pharaoh's focus on the Aten. Amarna art even broke away from traditional Egyptian styles, depicting the royal family in a more intimate, naturalistic way, often showing Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and their children basking in the rays of the Aten. Amarna was built with astonishing speed. Akhenaten needed to establish his new capital quickly to distance himself from the old religious and political institutions. Thousands of workers, including artisans, engineers, and laborers, were involved in the construction of this city. The bustling city soon became home to priests, officials, and citizens who were part of Akhenaten's new religious order. But life in Amarna wasn't just about religion. The city also became a hub of political activity, with foreign ambassadors visiting and important diplomatic correspondence conducted within its walls. Despite its religious focus, Amarna functioned as a political capital, at least for the 17 years that Akhenaten ruled. But while Akhenaten's devotion to Aten was absolute, the rest of Egypt wasn't so quick to embrace this new religious order. Many Egyptians were deeply attached to their traditional gods, and the powerful priesthood of Amun, which had been sidelined, quietly resist Akhenaten's reforms. Ordinary Egyptians struggled with the forced closure of temples dedicated to Amun, Ra, and other gods. Even in the official records, Akhenaten's name is notably absent from some parts of Egypt, suggesting that his religious revolution may not have been as widely accepted as he hoped. While Akhenaten's religious revolution transformed Egypt's spiritual life, it also had profound political and social repercussions. By marginalizing the powerful priesthood of Amun and relocating the capital, Akhenaten disrupted the traditional power structures that had kept Egypt stable for centuries. Furthermore, Akhenaten's intense focus on religious matters seems to have led to the neglect of Egypt's international standing. During his reign, Egypt's foreign policy appears to have weakened, with evidence showing that he did not respond to appeals for military aid from Egypt's allies in the Near East. Within Egypt, Akhenaten's reforms were deeply unpopular among the priesthood and nobility, many of whom lost wealth and influence as the new religion took hold. Meanwhile, ordinary Egyptians struggled with the shift away from their beloved gods. Temples to Amun and other deities were closed, and many felt alienated by the enforced worship of Aten. After 17 years of rule, Akhenaten's reign came to an abrupt end. The circumstances of his death remain unclear, but the political and religious order he established unraveled quickly after his passing. His successor, initially believed to be his son Smenkhkare, ruled briefly before another, more famous pharaoh ascended to the throne, Tutankhaten, who later changed his name to Tutankhamun. Under Tutankhamun, the old religious practices were restored, and the worship of Aten was abandoned. Egypt's capital was moved back to Thebes, and the priests of Amun regained their power. In an effort to erase the memory of Akhenaten's controversial reign, later pharaohs, including Horemheb, took deliberate steps to remove his name from history. Akhenaten's temples were dismantled, his statues destroyed, and his name was omitted from king lists. Although later pharaohs tried to erase Akhenaten from history, his legacy remains. Today, Akhenaten is remembered as a visionary and a revolutionary who dared to challenge the status quo. His religious reforms, while short-lived, left a lasting impact on Egypt's history. Akhenaten's reign represents one of the earliest known attempts at monotheism, and his experiment in religious reform continues to fascinate historians, archaeologists, and theologians alike. So, what do you think? Was Akhenaten a visionary pharaoh ahead of his time, or did his radical religious revolution push Egypt toward chaos? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the fascinating world of ancient history. This is Dynasties and Tales, bringing history to life, and see you next time.